quality of life and democracy requires two things: an integration and balance of professional, personal, and civic life, as well as an increase in civic participation. Today, I'm going to share my journey towards realizing these needs and actions to reach these goals. Personal initiative is not enough. We need to change policies and incentives. We also need to gain collective access to collaborative technologies to be successful. And success benefits us all. My journey began after college when I worked in Buenos Aires, Argentina for a women's rights organization. We provided training, professional training for women. We also organized rallies and protests and provided speeches. We co-sponsored legislation. And did so many events. But at the same time, I didn't really understand the impact or the value of what we were doing. I primarily saw chaos. I saw prestigious and influential speakers yelling over disruptive crowds, people talking and debating every issue, children screaming and playing. And we gave out so much food that it kind of felt like bribery. I didn't understand until I came back to the United States and I started graduate school that I started revisiting those times and re-examining those experiences from the perspective of the women that we served. Our organization was a channel, an outlet for collaboration and action. Our events were attended by mainly women who craved the kind of information and skills that we provided. Our events were scheduled between work and sleep, so women didn't have any other choice but to bring their children. And providing food gave women a night off from cooking. And the food and that environment gave women an opportunity to build connections and community. They pooled resources and built networks. And as a result, were able to create their own opportunities when many in society didn't value them. And it was important for children to experience powerful people, not only speaking at them, but speaking with them instead. And that, really, for me, ultimately became what civic engagement and democracy could combine in really powerful and meaningful ways. And that when you have people who not only speak to power, but have the tools to change the institutions in which they find themselves, are truly empowered. And that is agency, and that is when democracy thrives. Today, I am a researcher. I study organizations and leadership and change and culture. Most of my findings are hypothesized, but I am always inspired by those unexpected results. In 3 recent studies, I found a positive blending of personal and professional and civic life in ways that I didn't expect. I started to question this work-life dichotomy, and I found that the debates about work-life balance just didn't address the kind of creativity as well as boundaries that were possible. This was most evident in my last research study. I researched law enforcement across North Carolina as they adapted to human trafficking laws. I found leaders who wanted officers to have thriving personal lives and civic lives because it helped ease stress and it helped prevent burnout. I found officers who were building these great social networks, what they called resource multipliers, so that it could benefit their cases. I also saw officers that were quite nervous about reaching out and building partnerships with external organizations because they had to overcome what they called the cop mentality. But these external relationships were immensely important because they acted as a bridge for minority and marginalized populations that needed them the most, especially when multi-generational distrust was ingrained. Officers also wanted my help. They wanted recommendations. They wanted to find a way to balance this all. They wanted to figure out their needs and their responsibilities and make it all work. So I went back to my research, and I started with the individual. I created a questionnaire that had categories that addressed your time and your talents and your resources and your social networks and your technology and what could be possible, better ways that you could figure things out so that you could engage in civic participation. The first person that my questionnaire helped was actually me. I am a leader in a women's philanthropic organization, and I used my results to streamline our committee work so that we did most of our hard kind of work online and got to spend our in-person time socializing and running events. I also used it to help create healthy meals for my family in under 7 minutes so that we would have more time for bedtime stories and bedtime routines. But these kind of personal initiatives, this time management and being able to balance your needs as well as build boundaries and be creative, all of those personal initiatives are just not enough. We have to have systemic change if we want a real impact. And I saw this with law enforcement. When they got together and partnered with community organizations to have events where they can not only share and build relationships with the community, but also bring their families and their friends and blur those lines in really healthy and productive ways. I also found law enforcement officers that didn't just use buzzwords like community policing, they actually built it into the system to make it possible. So they made things like relationship building built into the job description that they were hiring people for. They also were rewarded when they built strong and successful collaborations with promotions. These kinds of policy changes and incentives made a real difference, but it's not the only thing that's going on. Governments across our country, or the government across our country as well as small municipalities, are partnering up with nonprofits and for-profit companies to build interactive collaborative technologies so that we can actually find more time to engage in civic participation. You have cities like New York with NYC Service, where they're building interactive databases where individuals can go and match their talents and their time and their resources with community and organizational, especially nonprofits, needs. I also have seen here in our own city ways in which our government is building interactive data portals so that individuals and organizations can access quality information and make data-driven decisions. This is only a glimpse at what is possible. If we balance and integrate our professional and personal and civic lives, especially our professional and our civic, in healthy ways, as well as increase civic participation, it is possible. And it's especially possible when we have personal initiatives, but we also change policies and provide the kinds of collaborative technologies that make it possible. For me, I'm motivated by my two daughters. One is 4 years old, and the other is 8 months. And I'm reminded of Argentina, when my 4-year-old loves, when my 4-year-old loves car picnics after going to a community event or a board meeting, which sometimes I have to drag her to, or when my 8-month-old falls asleep in the arms of one of my community members. so I can present research at a forum. All my hard work is in the hope that I create a better life for my girls, and that they are given a stronger democracy to inherit. My family is just one small part of this, and you can join us. Thank you.